Welcome into the OBR streaming network. This is a brand new edition of the React. My name is Brad Ward. Welcome. Good to see you all filing into the chat, and take a second to hit like and subscribe on your way in or out. Good to see you here. If you're watching on X, hop on over to youtube.com/Orange and Brown Report. Give us a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know every time we go live. It's free and it takes less than a second to do so. Helps us out a ton. So we appreciate that in advance. The man next to me is the always fantastic Pete Smith. You can follow him on Twitter at _Pete Smith _, which is a must follow and a must read all the time. Always over at the OBR. What is going on tonight, Pete?
This is probably the best I felt about the Browns in about 3 weeks. Not a high bar, but still better.
Really? That's great. That's fantastic news. Why?
Well, obviously, Nick Chubb being back is great, but
Yes.
I really like the Amari Cooper trade, and I like Amari Cooper. I thought he was nothing short of great here. But if you are somebody who's concerned about an unwillingness to move on from Deshaun Watson, I think this is all the indication you need that they are not stuck with this. Because if you were, you would not trade Amari Cooper. You would hold on to him and you would let his value decrease or not trade him and get nothing for him. They made a smart move in obviously terrible circumstances for why they moved him. But this is the first thing this season where I felt like, man, this is just a really smart move from a team I'm used to making smart moves. And it's refreshing to see that they are not insisting on doubling down on what is clearly not working. Even if obviously, Deshaun Watson is not on the bench yet, but would not shock me if that is not soon coming, given that we just got this out there.
Interesting. So you think this potentially, means that they are willing to do that in the future?
Well, again, we talked about this last week. It absolutely confirms yet another example. Ownership is not stopping the Browns from doing anything, because again, if they were saying Deshaun Watson's going to work no matter what, you would not allow them to move your best receiver. Yeah. The national pundits are saying the front office is forcing them to play Deshaun Watson, which never made any sense for people who understand the dynamic here. Obviously, they're not forcing this because they wouldn't trade Amari Cooper. So they are at least acknowledging that this is not working, at least right now, and that they are open to the idea of starting to move forward. Now, I don't think the Browns are giving up. We'll get into that part of it by any stretch. I do not buy this as the white flag they're waving. Right. But still, it just says to me, we understand we understand our circumstances being what they are, and we're not going to allow this to drag us down. And like I said, we'll get there. But the team I would immediately contrast this against is what the Jets are currently doing, which to me is a bad idea. But nevertheless, they are insisting on doubling and tripling down on their moves.
Okay, absolutely. Good stuff. That does make me feel better. So awesome. We're going to dive into all kinds of stuff tonight. I see your questions here about does the Cooper trade signal a major rebuild? Will they trade guys like Miles, Ward, Chubb? We're going to get to all of that tonight. It's all on the agenda, so we will get to your questions. Is Stefanski's definition of win different than the win-loss record? Good questions, guys. All right. So the one thing that came out of today, that was amazing, was Nick Chubb, his article in the Players Tribune. Nick Chubb, a quiet guy. You don't ever get this kind of really access to him. A guy that doesn't say a whole lot ever. A class act through and through, and all about Cleveland. here. Cleveland got my back is the title of it. There are there are some excerpts here. I just want to read the last little bit of this, which is probably, he goes into a lot of depth about his background, about going through both injuries, all that stuff. But the Browns, we'll just start right here towards the end of this here. Hang on one second. I think, I don't know if you can read that or not, but the last couple pages here, the Browns changed my life that night. So talking about draft night here, but more importantly, they changed my family's life. Now I think you understand what I mean when I tell you I was meant for this city. I've tried to work my ass off every day to get us where we need to go. And even though we've gotten close, I feel like I have serious unfinished business. That's why it hurt me so bad to go down last season. We were just starting to cook. I can't stop until I prove to everybody that I am the undisputed best running back in this league. And I definitely can't stop until we get the Browns back on top of the AFC. It's been too damn long. Thank God that I healed. Thank God that I can continue to play this great game. Thank God that I get the chance to run it back. You want to hear what the Browns told my agent, by the way? When my agent called me to tell me the news, he said I never actually had a front office tell me anything like this, but they said that part of the reason they never entertained cutting you is because of how much you mean to the city. That really meant the world to me. Look, I know the deal. I had no guaranteed money left. The Browns had all the leverage. They could have left me high and dry like so many guys in this league, but they had my back. You all had my back. That's enough talking for me. There's only one thing left to do now. I got to pay you back. These rocks ain't going to move themselves. Let's work. Signed, Nick Chubb. So, just incredibly well written and heartfelt and awesome stuff from Nick this morning, right, Pete?
Yeah, it's outstanding. He acknowledged in the presser, or I should say, he made sure to point out he had help, but that's fine. Like the message comes across loud and clear. They, you know, I appreciate the fact that he wanted to put something out there for people because he has been notoriously quiet in his career. I do think that's part of his charm. Typically, unfortunately, the more athletes talk, the more divisive they become, and people find reasons not to like them. And I think Nick Chubb's very quiet nature has been a huge benefit to him in terms of how he's viewed. Seen, not heard, that type of stuff. I think it's worth noting that he is the one pointing out that the Browns could have gotten rid of him and didn't. I don't think the Browns said you need to write this. And that part is obviously great. It makes you feel good. It makes you simultaneously feel good about Nick Chubb being on the Browns and the Browns. It also sort of simultaneously frustrates the crap out of you that you have this on one side of the spectrum and then you have Deshaun Watson on the other. And that's the move where you sit there and go, man, that takes me back to when I just really, when you were inclined to believe that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry were just really good people, in addition to being smart and these other things, that they sort of get it. And obviously the Deshaun Watson thing takes away from that in so many ways, but that they didn't look at Nick Chubb as Jack Duffin would. Jack Duffin would have cut Nick Chubb in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Jack Duffin's a cold Brit, would have ended him right now. Whereas you could certainly make the argument the Browns maybe should have, but they didn't hesitate. And that is important to him clearly, and important to the rest of this locker room. I do think that was a big part of this. And it's important because I have to imagine the other, 60 7 guys or whatever on this team are reading this and going, I hope I can get to a point like this, with any team. And the fact that the Browns are willing to do this, he deserves it. This, that, and the other is something that is helping you to sell yourselves as a franchise to protect it, prospective free agents, all these other things. And that's obviously been a big point of emphasis for the Browns since Barry and Stefanski got here, to make the organization more welcoming, to do things like try to better lives beyond just football with the stuff they've hired, like Ron Brewer as their player liaison, trying to encourage financial education and all these other things to try to like not just treat players as if they are, disposable, because, in many ways, football is like the modern gladiatorial game where you can't, play till you basically get killed and they just move you off and move to the next guy. So there's a human element in there that is important and valuable in that. But it was great. It gets you fired up. Now you have no idea what's going to happen on Sunday, but even if Nick Chubb carries the ball just once, I think a lot of people are going to want to see that.
Yeah. And probably be viewed as a win just to see him out there for a lot of people. So really cool stuff. Amazing. Like I said, you don't get to hear him talk about his background, is growing up, but absolutely, maybe that galvanizing thing you need for this team a little bit could be Nick Chubb. As you heard, the team yelling and cheering him on today at his presser, if you recall. It was a bit of a scene at the podium today. So we hope that's what it can be.
Yeah, I think I've said this before. This coming out of last week's game, I do think this will provide a substantial emotional lift for this team. They've been watching this because it's not like Nick Chubb was, in Siberia working out and training. They see him every day in the building. So as they do with all these guys, with Jack Conklin and some of these other guys who are battling back from these injuries. And when you watch these guys working hard and all these other things, you desperately want them to be able to find that success in addition to whatever talent they offer your team. So seeing this guy work so hard, when Nick Chubb himself acknowledges he thought his career was over, to be able to get to this point is obviously big. I do think it will be important to these guys. I think, like if you're an offensive lineman, or, somebody who's going to be blocking on a given play, I think there's this just sort of little extra little element that's going to push you to be like, man, I want to give this guy the best shot he can to be who he was, whatever.
100%. Absolutely. All right. Good stuff. There's more on this later in the show as well. But the other news of the week is, of course, Amari Cooper being traded to the Buffalo Bills. As Pete talked about a little bit already, we're going to start with our first video tonight. It's Rich Eisen reacting to that trade, and we will talk about it.
Is nuts. I mean, it's drunk
right now.
Today is drunk because there's breaking news. Can you give me the drop?
Here it comes.
And my eyes see. Wow,
breaking news.
Because I was going to say earlier that of any team that could actually really use Davante Adams on Monday Night Football, because, the cupboard does appear to be bare for a significant passing game. I said it would be the Bills, right?
Mm-hmm, you did.
And congratulations to Amari Cooper. He's been given his exit visas from Cleveland, and he is now a Buffalo Bill.
Wow!
And in the same way.
Wow!
In the same way, I don't know what the compensation is, by the way.
I haven't seen anything.
But in the same way that, the Cowboys did not supplement in the non-playing season of what it appeared to a lot of people Dak and CD would need, the Bills decided, obviously, to part ways with Stephon Diggs and say, we'll make do with what we have. But in the first 6 weeks, at 4-2, realized, what we kind of miss is a number one guy like Stephon Diggs. Now, obviously, they have different games. Pardon me. They have different games, Cooper and Diggs, but they went ahead and just got Josh Allen what they need. And I don't know, man. I just think the Dallas Cowboys that don't have the cap room or whatever. I don't know what's going on, but this will be another situation for the Shannon RJs of the world to ask the Cowboys, like, you don't think Cooper would help pop open CeeDee Lamb a little bit more?
We never should let him go to start.
Well, I mean, he wanted $20 million a year, and
negotiated
that one I'm not gonna throw out with the
He was
dishwater.
already on that
To
deal.
use the phrase, that one I understood. I got that one.
Well, we got him for nothing, so
No, but then $20 million a year is a lot. Certainly when I don't know if they had CD at the time. I don't know.
he was there.
I'm going to give Jerry the benefit of the doubt on that one. But getting him back right now would be helpful.
Hey.
Well, we're not serious people, Rich. So.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot saying Browns are getting a 3rd-round pick back.
Let me just say this, too, before Patrick Queen joins us also. Amari Cooper is going to just, I mean, suddenly the air will be cleaner and the sun will be brighter and the wine will taste better if he's a wine drinker, and the food will taste better.
And the wings will be crispier.
Because what's going on right now in Cleveland is an absolute 100% football disaster. And in the same way that you think maybe your team is not doing very well, and obviously we know what some teams that are struggling for wins right now.
Ooh, me?
No, I know that 3-3, but you're 3-3.
That's true.
I mean, the Cleveland Browns have a quarterback who must sit, but makes $45 million this year and the next and the year after that. And there's clearly the 2-time coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski, for him to come out and say, this guy is the guy who gives us the best chance to win right now, is absolutely, I'll be straight up, I'm sorry, I'll just say it, telling Browns fans that it's raining when something else is happening.
That's weird.
Honestly, you need to just watch and see. Kurt Warner said it perfectly to Kevin Clark on his pod, and he's been telling us this nonstop on game day morning and in meetings and whenever we're talking. Deshaun Watson is not seeing the field right now, and he is not playing even remotely close to the guy that they acquired from Houston. So, Browns fans, I hope your Guardians do well, and then the Cavs come back, because right now, one thing that you're not doing to help your quarterback is trading Amari Cooper away for a draft choice. Browns fans are like, we're going to stick with this quarterback. Nick Chubb's coming back, so maybe that'll be helpful, is that if he is the same guy, you run it with him and then start play actioning, and maybe that'll help. But trading Amari Cooper away ain't helping for the Cleveland Browns right now to win games when this quarterback does not appear to be the guy who's going to help them win games. Right? And for the Buffalo Bills, it's looking up. And for those of us who have Amari Cooper on their fantasy teams.
Oh, Rich Eisen.
Like me in the Dillingham League?
Oh, you have him in Dillingham?
Yeah.
I've got him in the other one. Buffalo taking on Tennessee. That should help.
All right, here's the final trade. The Bills get Amari Cooper and a 6th-round pick. The Browns get a 3rd-rounder and a 7th-rounder.
Okay. And I'm sure their general manager, Andrew Berry, is a highly talented guy and can make hay with that next year. But how's that help them dig out of this current hole? Deshaun Watson is having trouble playing quarterback, and you get rid of Amari Cooper. Makes you think like they are saying this season is over. What happens if they wind up with a top 2-3 pick? Oh, it's coming, but they've got a guy who appears to be a complete quarterback albatross right now. There's more games to come. I hope I am wrong. I know Browns fans think I take every opportunity to denigrate Deshaun Watson. I love Stefanski. I love the Browns. I love the fans. I want you guys to be as happy as possible, all of them. But right now, it doesn't look that way. Catch the Rich Eisen.
There's Rich Eisen on the situation. Thoughts, Pete?
So I understand his thought process from the 30,000-foot national perspective. but I don't agree that trading Amari Cooper is giving up on the season. I look at trading Amari Cooper as the Browns got a great offer that may not be there tomorrow, may not be there in 3 weeks, and said, we're taking it. This was a great offer. Third round pick. I did not think the Browns were going to get this much for Amari Cooper. So I'm thrilled with the return on the trade. And so, like, just from there, what was going to happen in 3 more weeks? You know, the trade deadline is November 5th, I believe, or somewhere in that neighborhood. Yep. Right ahead of week 10.
Mm-hmm.
So were the Browns a threat to rip off 3 straight wins and suddenly be right back in the picture? Their offense is currently DFL. So trading away Cooper doesn't change anything. And he's going to be a free agent after the year. It was clear the way things are going, he was not going to be brought back. So I don't look at this as waving the white flag. Now, their play, the way the Browns are currently playing, may validate that as a reason to think the year is over. But this does not signal fire sale to me. This does not signal anything along those lines. It just says, hey, the Browns got a great offer right now, and they didn't want to wait around and see it get wasted. Like, for example, if you wait, right now the Browns have leverage. The Browns have a ton of leverage right this second. In 3 weeks, they have less leverage. And let's say the Buffalo Bills go out next week and Josh Allen hurts his hamstring. So are they going to suddenly still want to trade for Amari Cooper? They may not.
Yeah.
If Amari Cooper goes out for the Browns this week and he's the latest starter, which seems to be about 2 a week, that goes down with injury, they cannot trade him. So
or he continues to play like crap.
Or he just doesn't play well, as he has not played well. Then his value sort of deteriorates.
Yeah.
So you took a great opportunity and you made the most of it. Now, are the Browns going to stop trying to win? Clearly not, or they would announce today that Deshaun Watson's not the starter. They would say we're done. Now, I still think that's ultimately where they need to go, and it's frustrating, and I totally understand all that. But at least for now, like if they are waving the white flag, the DTR should be getting reps with the one.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that for Myles Garrett. They're not going to do that with Nick Chubb coming back. They had a great situation. They made the most of it, and they acted in the best interest of the football team, which is what I want them to do always. And here's the litmus test for this whole thing to me. If you found out in 2 weeks that the Browns, let's say the Browns trade Amari Cooper at the deadline for like a 4th or a 5th round pick, and you find out reports confirm that the Browns could have gotten a 3rd and the pick swap that they did here,
yeah,
you would be unhappy. Am I mistaken in saying that, or is that dead on?
Accurate? That's accurate.
And I think everybody else would be. And they'd be saying, hey, the Browns are stupid. They knew where this season was sort of headed. Amari Cooper is going to be a 31-year-old free agent. We aren't going to re-sign him. Why wouldn't they take this deal? Because of course they would. So they did the smart thing. So
yeah,
we can sit here and go, oh, this is waving the white flag. This is the deal you take because it's there. If the Browns got a crappy offer, I don't think they'd take it. I think they looked at this and said, we're never going to get more than this right now. Let's go ahead and take it. And we've seen where the Browns didn't do these type of things before, where they got nothing. Not that these situations are necessarily comparable, but you got nothing for Odell Beckham. You got nothing for Jarvis Landry. You got nothing for a lot of these players. You gave up a 5th round pick and a swap of 6th round picks to get Amari Cooper. You got 2 great seasons out of him. And then you traded him for a 3rd round pick. This is, from a process standpoint, you could not ask for a better situation. Now, the fact that they are 1-5 and Deshaun Watson can't play dead, this obviously puts a huge tinge of disappointment on this whole thing. But it doesn't change the fact that in a vacuum, the Browns did exactly what they should have done in this scenario. This was the right move. And you're asking, how does this help the Browns this season? It doesn't help the Browns this season, but it acknowledges the fact that Deshaun Watson can't play. It says to this team that we are not going to just sit here and wallow in our, and sulk and pout and all this other stuff. We're going to try to start working to get better for next season. And a third round pick, a top 100 pick, gives you more ammo to potentially do that. And even if you'll get some of these people who are like, well, they can't draft anyway, which I would dispute, but whatever. Let's say you just throw it at a running back. You really like a running back, or, you like, you want another offensive lineman, whatever it is. It's a body you can put into your organization and try to get better. And if you hit it, great. Either way, what you can get out of that, or you trade the third round pick for another proven veteran who's much younger and is going to be a building block part of this team, whatever it is, or you trade up with it if you want to get a higher pick. It doesn't matter. The potential payoff of the third round pick is infinitely higher than what Amari Cooper was going to give you at this point. So, chalk that up as a win in a season full of L's. And this is why, to me, it's refreshing, because it says to me, even though I've already made this point in what we talked about last week, it says ownership's not married to this bad situation. It says the front office is not married to this situation. It says Kevin Stefanski's not married to a bad situation, because if they were, they wouldn't have done this. So it says to them, they recognize they're not going to double down. And I look at the Jets, who traded for Aaron Rodgers, paid him a boatload of money, fine, whatever. There were plenty of people with the Browns who wanted the Browns to do the same thing. He's not the same Aaron Rodgers. Then they trade a conditional third round pick for Hassan Reddick, who is not even put on the uniform at this point. Yeah. And now you just fired your head coach last week. And this week you are trading a conditional third from this year to go get a 31-year-old receiver with a hefty contract that they had to immediately turn into a restructure and pay out into the future. And maybe this will work for the Jets, and maybe they'll get to the playoffs. But do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? No. Would it surprise me if they miss the playoffs? No. So if they do all of this stuff and they come out of this and they're an 8-9 football team or a 9-8 football team who's sitting on the outside looking in of this situation, they have now spent future resources to double down on a bad situation, because in part the GM knows he's probably getting fired if this doesn't work out. The head coach is already gone. So I don't want the Browns to operate like the Jets are currently operating. I want them to accept who they are and make smart moves, which is, to me, this is what they did. To me, this is what the Amari Cooper trade was. Bad situation, made a great trade. It's great for the Bills, potentially. I mean, if they, it gives them the number one receiver they want. They can really give them a lift. It's great for Amari Cooper, who like I said, he was great here. I don't buy into the idea that he wasn't trying. I don't buy into the idea that I'm not convinced he's lost a step either. But I truly believe he was pressing too much. He was trying too hard, because he sort of saw his football life flashing in front of him and thinking this is sort of the end of him making big money and all these other things. But regardless, he gets to go to a great situation. The Bills, they're going to do whatever they're going to do. Maybe this gets them to the Super Bowl. Maybe it doesn't. But none of that changes what's going to happen for the Browns. They need all what is the complaint a lot of people are saying? The Browns have an old roster. Not really true, but still something you hear. They need to get younger. They've done all of this in this move. This is all the things I would want from this situation.
Yeah, I would agree. I have no problem with them moving off Cooper at this point. He hasn't played well this year. They got 2 great years out of him. I have been wanting to see Jamari thrash at some point. Maybe this gets him on the field. We'll see. I don't know if that impacts it at all, but maybe he stops being inactive and they can get him some reps, but I'd like to see what they have in him. The frustrating aspect of it is I understand where you're coming from when you say And I think you're right when you say they're not doubling down, because why would you trade him if you were still all in on Watson, right? The most frustrating part of that is why not sit him down right now? Would be the ideal time to sit him down. In a perfect world, this would be when you sit him down. And I keep hearing Mary Kay Cabot, regurgitate the same thing over and over. They're not willing to give up on him. They're going to spend this year, trying to figure out what they have in him. I mean, he is all-time bad level now, and especially with, the data to back it up, the analytics, the stuff from this, there's numbers for days that put him in like Jamarcus Russell territory and all this stuff this year, right? And like, we're sitting here continuing to play him. This week would be ideal, coming home with Chubb coming back, Cooper gone, get him out of there too, let Jameis play, and let's go try to win some games, right? And because he doesn't give them the best chance to win, which is the most frustrating part for me. And as I wrote the other day, he clearly doesn't give you the best chance to win. But Stefanski keeps telling you that, which is super annoying.
I mean, based on data, you would say it's impossible that he gives them the best chance to win.
Impossible.
Stefanski would have a better angle on this. I don't buy into the idea that Stefanski's just like wildly lying for this guy. I could be wrong. I don't know what, without being able to access practice. If you want me to watch practice tape, I'd be happy to do that. To get a sense of what else is out there in terms of how does Jameis look, how does anyone else look. But yeah, I mean, it's the whole situation is infuriating, and I'm hoping that in part, I don't think that the Browns went into this week thinking they were going to trade to Amari Cooper. Again, I think this was they got a phone call and were like, this is just a great opportunity. So I am wondering if not this week, is this the week where they go, look, it's done, we're moving on. We're going to go with Jameis. If for no other reason, then we want to evaluate. We want to see what Jerry Jeudy can really do. We want to see Cedric Tillman get more reps. We want to see, Jamari Thrash, if he's ready to go and get there playing. We want to see if we want to keep Elijah Moore beyond this season. And the Deshaun Watson element is going to limit your ability to do that. Like,
yes.
I like the thing that it takes me back to is like when the Browns had Josh McCown as sort of their veteran quarterback, and you sort of knew what your stat line was going to be. It'd be like 270 yards and probably 2 or 3 picks, but he'd at least give your receivers a chance to go do stuff, and you could at least see them, either sink or swim in that condition. I don't know what you can really take from now. Everybody's going to go, well, Cedric Tillman dropped that one ball. Okay. But like beyond that, there's not a whole lot there. And if he were to catch the next 10 and make a bunch of plays, I think people would get over the drop, as frustrating as it was. And I think that's the problem, is we've got such a small sample size with so many of these guys. It's like difficult to evaluate and get a real feel for what they're going to look like on Sunday. So that is ultimately where I think this thing has to go. And if you're, again, by acknowledging that this is the situation you're in by moving Amari Cooper, that's why I think it sort of greases the skids on getting this going a little bit faster than maybe it did coming out of Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. The evaluation, you can't get any kind of an evaluation with most of these people with Watson in there at this point. I'm baffled by Stefanski's. So let me ask you this question. We had the other night, I wrote the article about gaslighting, right? And you kind of said you don't think he's lying. And I don't think he's like, he just, it's not his job to always tell the truth at the podium, right? Like whatever the agenda is for them. However, them telling us kind of like what Eisen said, that he gives them the best chance to win when we all know he doesn't is infuriating at this point.
I mean, there's an element of you've got a message in a way that's not going to like degrade your own players, but like if he goes ahead and benches Watson this game or the next week, like the natural follow-up is going to be, you said Deshaun Watson gave you the best chance to win. What changed? People, as much as the media is sort of like hoping that they want to, make that swap, somebody's still going to ask that question. Somebody's going to still try to make him squirm in that situation. So,
I mean,
and the thing is, I know exactly how he will answer the question. He'll go, look, it's week to week. The game is always changing. We got to evaluate what we see, all that stuff, and give you an unsatisfying answer, even though it's still giving you the result you want. But yes, messaging and all that stuff can get in there, but still, it's really hard. He was so emphatic with some of this stuff. So
yeah. So, but my question to you was, I wrote a portion of the article about that I didn't think Stefanski was being desperate enough in trying to change something or do something to spark someone. Is that the part you disagreed with? That you were going to remember we talked about this?
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. No, I could certainly make an argument that, look, you come into the season, you have this plan, you really want this plan to work, you're trying to do all these new things and get it going, and there's this element, you want to stick with it to see it through, to get it to the point where you can truly say that's going to satisfy you and say, you just can't do it. Now, I don't know why we have not gotten there yet, to your point.
Yeah.
The thing I disagreed with was just sort of the fact that you're like, this changes my opinion of Kevin Stefanski, and you open that door and you don't really like go anywhere with it. Like, in other words, and you may not know the answer to this question, but like, if somebody was to go, okay, does that mean you're now open to firing Kevin Stefanski? Does that mean you are, any number of questions along those lines where you say it's changing my opinion of Kevin Stefanski, and by not sort of elucidating exactly what that means, it sort of just leaves this murky area where the reader can sort of read into what you're thinking as opposed to being able to read what you're actually thinking.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess kind of what I was trying to say was like, because I said, I like Stefanski. I don't want to see him go anywhere, but this is affecting my opinion of him because we've talked about, we both believe he's making this decision.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he's sitting there saying that is insulting to the fans and the locker room, frankly, in my opinion, that they keep saying that he's their best chance to win and they're going to run him out there again at this point when it's just brutal. I guess I was saying I don't want him to continue doing that because it is affecting my feeling, and I don't want to dislike Stefanski because I think he's a good coach. He's not stupid; he's smart. So why is he not being smarter? I guess.
Not gonna lie, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if Amari Cooper goes and has 125 yards and 2 touchdowns this week, just to really hammer that home. But I mean, this is the thing: is like I'm hoping that, and that's why I'm hoping that the Amari Cooper thing is going to sort of get this going. That's the move that sort of says this isn't working, and we're gonna start making moves to try to improve our situation. And I still believe the Browns want to win this year. It's insane to say that they're going to give up on the season at week 7. But hopefully that is going to progress this thing faster.
I hope so. And Coop, Coop will be happier. Coop gets a chance to try to get his money, right? And I mean, frankly, do we think he was really happy here at this point? I mean, he said all the right things in the presser. He wasn't like I don't believe he was a disturbance or anything, but I don't think he was really happy at this point. I mean, even today he left a cryptic message on his IG. Did you see that?
No.
I got it here. Hang on. Interpret this what you will. But this is him today after the trade, right? Move or rust?
Yeah, I wouldn't read into that. I would just say, I would look at that more of just you got to play better, or you're going to sort of get left behind type thing. Now, it could be more than that. I don't really care. But the thing I would say is like no one is happy right now in Cleveland, and that doesn't mean they all want to leave, but nobody can possibly be happy with the current situation.
But other than
Deshaun, Deshaun is probably pretty thrilled that he's still in the field and he's still getting, his direct deposits doing just fine. But other than that, like, and there are, several dozen players who are unhappy. I don't attribute that to immediately going, well, they want out, because most of these guys are fighting for their career viability. It's got to be frustrating as hell to, especially if you're on offense, to be like, I don't feel like I can get a fair shake or an honest evaluation because this guy can't do his job. So that part I totally understand. But I would just say no one is happy.
Yeah, and there was the contract stuff and the trade stuff that he also had left cryptic stuff. Then I'm not, I'm not calling him a malcontent or anything, but he did, voice his displeasure after that stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, if you were a guy going from a 1-5 team to 4-2 Bills team with a quarterback that's going to get you the ball and this, that, and the other, like I'd be happy for him too. I would point out that the restructuring of that contract, and I think the Browns had this in mind, helped pave the way for this trade to happen. It also made him more valuable in a trade. So that no way Buffalo can do it any other way.
Yeah, I mean, his base salary is like $800,000 right now.
Yeah,
like he was the one guy who could fit on any team. It sort of made him more valuable because like teams like the Bills and the Chiefs are really pushed up against the cap. And Amari Cooper was like your one guy that could really move the needle in terms of your receiving group and be affordable. So that like if you're still $20 million, his value would have been practically zero at that point. So that actually played a critical role. And I have every reason to believe the Browns thought of that when they agreed to restructure his deal.
Yeah, agreed. That helped big time. All right, good stuff there. I'm sure Coop will come up again later in more of these videos tonight, but this is from this morning, 92.3 The Fan, Ken Carmen, Anthony Lima, talking about the future of, I think, Andrew Berry here. So let's take a look at this and react.
Is that people were tweeting at me, Ken, they fleeced the Bills. They didn't fleece anyone. And you want to know why they didn't fleece anyone? They're 1-5. They're a 1-5 football team that put the expectations out there that they were supposed to go to New Orleans this year. They are 1-5. Their quarterback is a basket case. We couldn't bring back Joe Flacco this year because they knew that the fans would boo him. And I understood the reasoning why, even though I didn't think it would lead to good football. It's part of the reason why they don't want to put Jameis Winston out there, because if you notice his teammates, the basket case, his teammates can't shut up about how great of a leader Jameis Winston is. So you have to deal with that. And now you have all these leaks that we're starting to get about some people not being very thrilled with the quarterback himself, guys who are in uniform. This is just the tipping of the iceberg here. Amari Cooper got out. And I'm thinking, who put all this together? Because you get a third-round pick, that's excellent. What are we going to do with that pick? Are we going to get another undersized wide receiver who can't stay healthy? Are we going to get another fast wide receiver who can't catch the football or won't reach for the football, leading to the interception that led to Baker Mayfield breaking his shoulder, which put this whole chain of events in the first place? Or are we going to take another oversized wide receiver who can't hold on to the football and can't run the right route? What are we going to do with that third-round pick? Because now I really do have to question the person making that decision now. I have to.
Can I make a prediction, Kenny?
1-5. What?
It's not going to be Andrew Berry making that pick.
Who's it going to be?
It's not going to matter.
If you say it's not going to matter?
It's not going to. Everything you're saying, I understand why you're saying it.
Because if you were going to say one name, I was going to walk out of the room and slam the door.
I think right now, as it stands, October 16th, I didn't come into work thinking I was going to say this. I don't think Andrew Berry's going to be making that selection.
You think he's going to pay the fiddler for all this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I think
I
think this thing is on the verge of what could be a massive shakeup.
Personally, I like Andrew. I'm on the record. I think he's a good person. I can't defend this. I can't defend this. This is indefensible.
Okay, I want to get your reaction to this. I want to preface it with I love Ken, and I know he's angry. Yeah, he's clearly upset here. Go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very curious to hear what he actually thinks once he's sort of not worked up about it in a shoot, so to speak. If I'm going to borrow his language,
yeah,
I don't think the Browns fleeced the Bills. Because I do think it's a somewhat risky trade for the Bills. I think it's a great trade for the Browns, a good trade for the Browns. But like, I don't understand the argument of basically saying, what's the point of doing anything? Because that's basically what you're boiling it down to. You're saying, well, the third round pick's not going to help us. Well, why have any draft picks? Why have any free agents? Why do anything at all? Why not just fold the franchise? Because that's what it sounds like. And that's fine. Like, he is upset, cool. And then the Lima part means nothing to me. And I don't know if he'll stand by that even this evening. But it's whatever. Here's what I would say. To this point, I don't think anyone's getting fired at all.
I don't think so either.
If you were going to fire them for Deshaun Watson, why sign them to extensions? You could have simply just let them play out the last year of their contract and say, hey, Deshaun Watson's either going to work or you're going to be gone. And it didn't work, and you could fire them. Now, they did sign the contracts, and Jimmy Haslam could still fire them. And the key word here is them. I do not think this would be a one guy goes situation. I think they are tied together. They have been tied together the entire way. So you are going to fire them both in that scenario, I expect. So Now what happens? Now you've got to pay out whatever the length of the contract was that they signed on the extension, all the money attached. And then what? Deshaun Watson's still on the roster, and you're trying to hire people in this circumstance? Like, who are you kidding? Who are you going to get? It's stupid. So if you're mad at Andrew Berry for Deshaun Watson, I don't blame you. If you were a fan or a talking head, you can say he can be gone, should be gone, whatever for Deshaun Watson. The problem you run into with that logic is what was the level of I preface this by saying I fully believe Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski started the trip to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
At what point did Jimmy Haslam get too far over his skis and bid way too much money? Was that at the urging of them? Did he just decide on his own that was going to be the play? And that changes the dynamic.
Yes,
so if you're saying somebody has to suffer for Deshaun Watson, it's perfectly reasonable to make that argument. Do I think the Browns are going to do that? No, I don't. And
no.
Maybe that will change, but I don't think they're going to make that change because you are then going to have to replace these people and still have the quarterback on the team. And nobody wants him. Nobody wants to come here in that scenario. It's awful. So you can be piss and moan and go, oh, they should fire this guy. They should fire this guy. And then what? Hugh Jackson is waiting for you. He will take that phone call. He will come back and coach this team. But you are going to get your eighth choice. Again, you're going to be back to eighth choice on who you're going to hire to fix the football team. And for whatever reason, you don't have to like this, but Haslam and ownership has liked the way Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have operated. Now, they can be mad at 1-5, but I would also point out that part of the reason they are 1-5 is because they are ridiculously injured. And if you want to fire them for being ridiculous, I've lost count on the number of offensive line combinations that they played. All I can tell you off the top of my head is they went through 2 more just this past week because of injuries.
Yeah.
And it's not like, they're on their 4th center. They're on their 4th center already. It's not like we went into this season going, oh man, the tackle situation is bad. They're on their 4th center. Yeah. It's genuinely ridiculous. Like last game, you looked and you went, hey, Jack Conklin's back. Man, this is going to be great. And Jack Conklin was fine. Wasn't great, shaking off the rust, but he was clearly pretty good. that is a step in the right direction. But your third play of the damn game, Nick Harris goes down with a broken ankle. Like, what do you like? At some point, you're just like boned. And you know who else is boned? The Miami Dolphins are currently boned. Why?
Yep.
Injuries.
Injuries.
The Los Angeles Rams currently boned. Why? Injuries. Welcome to the sport. Sometimes this is what happens. Now, none of that excuses the Deshaun Watson element. And as somebody who was against this the entire way, vehemently arguing against going down this stupid path, I totally understand why people would be ready to move on from anyone attached to this. But I don't think Haslam will. I don't think we're there yet. People can be as mad as they want. I don't think the players are quitting on them. I don't buy any of this crap, because what we end up with is a situation where fans and pundits take their feelings and put it on other people that they can't possibly know how they feel.
Yeah.
And there are a whole lot of players on the Browns that really like being in Cleveland, that really like the Browns, and are not sitting here. Myles Garrett's the perfect example. Constantly, people are talking about, well, Myles Garrett will, of course, want out. You're not Myles Garrett, and we've seen nothing to suggest this other than you think he should want to get out, and I don't know why you want him to go, but that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
But Myles Garrett is probably going to get another contract extension this offseason. He owns a piece of the Cavs. He understands what the value in being with the Browns the whole way is. Yeah. And he has said over and over and over, he wants to make the Browns be great. So you can, I guess, make an educated guess that you're going to assume that everybody's going to want to do exactly what you think they would want to do, but it's a bad faith argument and it's not realistic. So those are things the Browns could be finding out as we speak, that they're like, they get it. And the other thing is, like, Deshaun Watson's situation sucks. It sucks that you're going to have to pay this guy all this money and continue to pay him, and he's going to be stuck on the roster in some form or fashion. But the Browns can still operate and win football games. That's the problem. And that's the other reason I don't think the Browns are ready to give up on these guys that they clearly liked enough to extend in the offseason. I don't think anything that has happened is going to change that. Now, obviously, the Watson embarrassment is its own issue, but there's so many reasons why I don't think that Haslam is interested in getting rid of these guys. And his hiring track record is all the evidence you need.
Yes.
He hired. Exactly. He's been awful at hiring, and part of the reason is because nobody wants to come here that is good. Kevin Stefanski was the one guy, and you were lucky that Kevin Stefanski said, no, it's okay that you hired Freddie Kitchens before me. I'm going to come back and apply again, because if you
second time. Yeah.
If you didn't, you were going to be stuck with Josh McDaniels, who, by the way, Anthony Lima, now he will freely admit how wrong he was on this.
He wanted Josh McDaniels.
Wanted Josh McDaniels, who has been one of the worst coaches in NFL history. So who have they hired other than Stefanski and Barry that has been good for this team? And remember, they went and got Barry back.
Yep.
Barry went to Philadelphia and they brought him back because they wanted him so badly. So Bruce Arians is 100 years old. Stop it. Like, Bruce Arians wasn't going to be the guy you needed him to be for this team. It's not realistic. He was having serious health problems at the point. It's like the same people are telling me, oh, they could hire Bill Belichick, who I'm sure loves that idea. I'm sure he cannot wait to get to Cleveland to coach. Or that Mike Vrabel is not going to run away from this situation if they fire everybody else and go, we're not going to do this to you. This is not realistic. All these people, you can pick these names out and go, hey, they could hire this guy. It's unrealistic at this point.
I would say,
look, if we get to that point, they will back channel and do all the stuff.
Yeah.
But the problem the Browns continue to have is, like, it is really difficult for them to get the primo candidates. So, like, you want to fire these guys. I totally understand it. But here's the thing where I hear all these arguments for people who do not take it to its logical conclusion, which is then to answer the question of, then what? Who's the coach that wants to come here with Deshaun Watson still on the roster? Who's the GM that wants to come here with Deshaun Watson still on the roster, who has to deal with this all for a couple more years potentially? So, again, I understand it. I'm not going to tell anyone that like they shouldn't be mad at Deshaun Watson, the situation, and everybody responsible for it. But right now, I don't think anyone's getting fired for it.
Agreed. I agree, and here's why I agree. So I think that there was a tipping point last year as they kind of went on their run, and Deshaun Watson was sitting, and it became clear that both Barry and Stefanski were going to get extensions, right? And they were going to make the playoffs for the second time in 4 years and win 11 games again. Those two guys have taken this organization to more success than any other two guys, any other regime since 99 by far. It's not even close. Stefanski's been the best head coach they've had. Barry's been the best GM they've had. And I would point out that going and getting Deshaun Watson, although probably not popular with most, as I wrote about, as it, this moral dilemma was forced down our throats as fans, was an attempt for them to try to win. And it was a gamble and it didn't pay off. But the reason I see them still here is because Stefanski, I believe, is a hell of a coach. And B, because Pete has constructed every dime of this payroll out in a way that he has planned for into the future. Like, so you can't just bring in any other GM that doesn't understand how how all of his bonus payouts and rolling stuff into the future and how he has this planned out, as Jack Duffin has laid out for us at the OBR, that he's got this planned like 3 years into the future, how the money's going to work. You have to let him see that through, or else it's even going to be more of a mess if you bring somebody in that doesn't know how to manage that properly, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics that are at play that sort of the Browns have the current people in place have firmly entrenched themselves in ways that sort of, I guess in some ways provide their own job security. But here again, like everybody can say how much they dislike Barry. The league loves him. The league is really envious of the Browns front office.
Yes.
So if you want to fire him, that's fine. He's going to turn up in a job. And as I said, I don't see a scenario where they're going to fire one and not fire the other. They want to work together.
Yes.
I don't see them splintering. So like that's part of this. I don't see them. I don't see why you would get rid of both of them. Kevin Stefanski, as you said, has proven to be a good coach. And right now he looks like a bad coach because he's got an awful quarterback and a ridiculous injury situation. And that's going to happen in the same way that I would not say Sean McVay is a bad coach because they're bad, or Mike McDaniel is a bad coach because they're bad, because they're insanely injured. But it's not arguable that Andrew Berry is not the best GM this team has had. And you can say that bar is low, but if you're trying to make the argument that anyone has been better than him with the Browns since 99, you're out of your mind and you're pretending a whole bunch of things didn't happen that absolutely happened. So that's fine. The bottom line to me is we're not there yet. I don't think we're going to get there this year. I think the way they've sort of structured this whole thing sort of makes it so they have to sort of be give themselves a chance to dig their way out. And I really do believe, and here's the thing, like if you're trying to like project this forward into next season, you're sitting there, well, the Browns have to do A, B, and C. Other than quarterback, all those things were already going to happen. We knew they were coming ahead of time. Left tackle, unless DeJuan Jones is going to end up over there at some point, we knew this was going to happen. We knew they were going to need another guard. Unless Javion Cohen is going to be, a revelation, we knew they were going to need another guard. They may need a center now. That might be a little unexpected, but these are like not difficult to do. And whether you do that with free agency or the draft or whatever, the defense is still really good. It will still be really good next year. And Amari Cooper was expected to be gone. it was always a question of where do they go next. Maybe you resign Amari Cooper for one more year, but ultimately you knew they were going to have to do this. So if the Browns are able to do what we just saw Minnesota do, for example, and I'm not suggesting they need to have the success Minnesota did. Minnesota coming into this year was a team that had allegedly Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah on the hot seat. Now they're one of the best teams in the league, and they're doing it with Sam Darnold.
Yep.
And we're watching the Steelers win football games with Justin Fields, and we're watching a bunch of these other teams win with, not great quarterbacks. So if I look at it and say, look, we've seen Kevin Stefanski have success and get good play out of Jacoby Brissett. We've seen him do it with Mayfield. We've seen him do it with Flacco. We've seen him do it with any number of players at quarterback. To me, it's not a huge leap for them to say, we're going to move on, get another quarterback in here, a veteran or rookie, whatever, maybe DTR in some sort of competition in that group, and then do the things they were already going to have to do. And they have a ton of money coming up after this year, as Jack Duffin has outlined, like $186 million they'll be able to spend if they want to build up the roster, even with Deshaun Watson on the team. So, and again, this is a thing where you sit there and go, well, why would you keep Andrew Berry? Because he engineered this situation to be able to happen in the first place. Yeah. And Kevin Stefanski has been able to do things that he did. Like 2023 seems a really long time ago, was miraculous. It was insane. Most people were expecting the Browns to have the record they had once Nick Chubb went down.
Yes.
And all the, that was before all the other injuries. So if you want to throw them out, so be it. I just would be very cautious because I don't think you're going to be able to replace them with the capable guys. So I'm fascinated. I'm always fascinated with, it's really satisfying to fire guys. And then the natural question is, okay, now what? And the what does not have a satisfying answer.
Yeah. And just like reading some of the opinions in the chat that, AB will never get a job, not after the Watson trade. No, I'm sorry, but the truth of the matter is that he is thought of unbelievably highly in NFL circles. Despite that trade, there was 13 teams that were in trying to get the Watson. You know what I mean? So it's a once in a lifetime in the NFL opportunity when a top 5 starting quarterback becomes available. Yes, did they miss? Did it not work out? It didn't, unfortunately, and here we are. But people are not going to hold that against him forever, and he will get a job right away because he is looked at as one of the smarter GMs in the entire NFL. And Stefanski is held in high regard as well. They will both have jobs right away when they are out of here.
Not only that, I expect Glenn Cook is going to get a job coming out of this year as well.
Yes.
Who's currently an assistant. I think they have continuously pumped out talented front office staff from Cleveland, and Cleveland is a place where teams are going to look for talent. So that's its own issue. That you're going to have to sort of change. Again, who are you going to get to replace these jobs? Yeah, you will eventually find somebody. I just don't think it's the candidate you think it will be, especially under these circumstances. So that's where we sort of end up with. Again, I totally understand why people think they should go. I something will have to be done in terms of not even an apology tour, just acknowledging how just a giant cluster this has been, and what everything that has come with it. But I think that's another reason why I think Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry may stick around, is because I don't think Haslam wants to be the one that does it.
Right.
He has let these guys sort of be out in front of it, and as they should be if they were involved in this acquisition. But maybe it will change. But to me, even if they go 1-16, I wouldn't. But I understand why people feel differently.
Yeah, I get it too. People want their pound of flesh, but ultimately, I think the best way for this organization to move forward is with the guys that have had the most success so far. All right, we've got another video here. This one is, of course, we like to go to them. Pro Football Talk, Sims and Florio. talking about what to do with Deshaun Watson again this week. They love this topic, and they're hitting on it again.
An interesting tweet from Mitchell Schwartz, former All-Pro offensive lineman who played for the Chiefs and before that the Browns.
Right.
Because Kevin Stefanski was asked yesterday, again, will you stick with Deshaun Watson? The answer, one word, yes. Said Schwartz on Twitter X, I still call it Twitter, and I'm just going to
Mama named her Twitter. I'm
just
calling
going
her
to forget
Twitter.
that the guy who owns the current hellscape wants it to be called X. All the more reason to call it Twitter. It's incredibly shitty to do this to the rest of the team. Sorry, London. Joel Bitonio is out there every week playing through who knows what and has to wreck his body when they have no chance of being good because of the quarterback. Myles Garrett is playing in pain every week. I feel for everyone else there. There is a certain point where it's just, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And it's not the coach's call. It's all the way up to ownership. Just like with the Jets, the ownership starts at the dysfunction starts at the top, and this contract is a result of an ownership decision. They're sticking with him because of ownership, and they're just stuck.
They're stuck.
And I admire the Browns players for going out there and busting their asses every week when they're playing with one hand tied behind their back.
Seriously. I mean, especially the defense, the way they still fly around, physical. Right. I mean, yeah, they let up a few plays, but again, I think they also look at it like, hey, if we don't make the plays, we got no chance to win the game. So we got to take some chances there. And I feel like Jim Schwartz probably feels that pressure as well. But yes, it's another game. I don't know what to say. It's horrible. It's ugly to watch. And it's an offense that, with Kevin Stefanski, it's a good offense, but it's dependent on the run game. And it's never been able to be totally dependent on just pass game and the quarterback that way, right? So I've never looked at it quite that way. But with their offensive line being banged up and no Nick Chubb, they can't do that. And now it puts more of a spotlight on the passing game and Deshaun Watson. And it's just... yeah, it's bad decisions. It's holding the ball. It's underwhelming throws. I mean, again, like you'll see, and maybe cut to the wide shot here. Like I look at things like this. Most quarterbacks sit here and throw the ball, and they're upright, and their arm comes through. And this, you heard me in the viewing room yesterday. I was telling he has throws in the game where he looks like he is throwing off a mound. He throws the ball and ends up in a bent-over, followed-through position like he just threw a fastball off a mound in the ninth inning of a Yankees game. And that's just, there's things there that it doesn't look right psyche. It doesn't look right physically. There's nothing to be positive that's positive about the Cleveland offense right now.
You were making the point last week that it just feels like he's lost his confidence, whether it's off-field issues, on-field issues, injuries, whatever.
One of the Washington D linemen said it too last week after the game.
And we haven't seen Deshaun Watson play at a high level consistently since 2020 when he was the lone bright spot for a horrible Texans team that fired Bill O'Brien 4 weeks in. And then remember there was the rift because Deshaun Watson wanted input in who the next coach was going to be, who the next GM was going to be. He felt like he didn't get it. Next thing you know, he wants out. Next thing you know, we find out about all these lawsuits and didn't play in 21, 6 games in 22, 6 games in 23, and 6 games into 24. It feels like it needs to end, but the Browns unwilling, unable, unequipped to get their way out of this mess.
I'm extremely intrigued how they get themselves.
You got to pay him.
Mess.
You don't have to play him.
Yeah,
you got to pay him.
Right.
That doesn't mean guaranteed playing time.
Well, I mean, here's the other thing that frustrates me: doing nothing to help the football team. The team is being held hostage because of their horrible decision to pay him and trade for him and do all that. So they are still trying to make it work. But then the other aspect of, I don't want to run the ball. That's not why they brought me here. You got to do something to help your football team, okay? And then the fact that he's not in there during quarterback sneaks. I mean, that was another part of the game yesterday. They were in field goal range. They bring in Jameis Winston on a 3rd and 1 because I guess Deshaun Watson can't run a quarterback sneak either now. For $45 million.
They've been doing that all year, though.
I know. But still, it's week 6 now.
It's not like you're bringing in Refrigerator Perry.
Exactly right. It's week 6. Okay, stop. Like he's okay. His shoulder's okay now. We've gotten past that point. They run some stupid play trying to fake the quarterback sneak. They lose yards on it, and then they miss the field goal right after that too. So it's just one thing after another, but it all stems back to that horrible decision of him being the quarterback right now, and yeah, that's an issue.
3 first-round picks, 3 more picks, and a 5-year, $230 million, fully guaranteed contract that they cannot get out of. There was, and we need to take a break, but I saw some chatter emerged last week he'd welcome a trade. Well, nobody's trading for him. He would have to give up so much of his salary to facilitate a trade. And nobody would even want him.
Nobody.
Who wants him at this point?
No, he's bad for PR. You're going to question his psyche.
Yeah, you
like
only put up with the PR hit if you bring in a superstar.
Exactly right. Hey, guys, we're bringing in one of the worst starting quarterbacks in football that doesn't really look like he believes in himself right now and doesn't look like he actually really wants to play football anymore, and we traded a bunch of picks for him. Yeah, okay, yeah, get excited, fan base. You're like, yeah, right. And he's got a horrible off-the-field history to go along with it. Let's talk about that for the next week as we, get ready to watch him play below-average quarterback football.
At some point, they just need to, and it's been suggested, just bench him. You still have him if you got to pay him anyway. Just keep him around. At some point, they're just going to need that. If they don't bench him, they're going to need to just cut him. It's going to be the only thing they can do to avoid a fan revolt and a locker room revolt. Maybe. At some point, they're going to be there. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks.
Just sort of Chris Sims going off on a tangent there and sort of lost the plot there for a minute, sort of validated the number of problems the Browns are dealing with. But I agree that all of it stems back to Watson. I agree both from a play calling standpoint, from some of the stuff they're doing. Although, we talked about that play and the questions I have with it. There was a suggestion there was a miscommunication, so I can't help but wonder if there were options. But this is the thing that's going on, and I think not that it's an argument to keep Watson in there, but there are a lot of more problems on that side of the ball than just the quarterback. Now, having said that, I can't justify keeping him in there. I just can't. So I'm not going to pretend. I eagerly await the moment they move on. It's just a question of how long it takes to get there, and who knows with what will happen this week against the Bengals.
Yeah, I think when Florio said you have to pay him, you don't have to play him. That's fine. We know. True. I mean, you can pay him, and we know already the plan, right? The plan that you have to follow. He's going to be either on the roster or at home, but you're going to be paying him next year too. Day 1, 2026, restructure post June 1st. That's the way out, right? It involves one more year of him on the roster, but that's where you are. But you don't have to play him. And the way out of this involves a bridge or a young quarterback next year anyways. So,
correct.
I just, I think it's become painful to watch for people on Sundays.
Yeah. I mean, again, we talked about this post game. There were a lot of things I actually enjoyed watching in terms of the running game and some of the things I saw. Yeah. I like seeing Jack Conklin and some of those things work. But yeah, it is miserable. It's a miserable slog to watch Deshaun Watson play football at this point. And some of that context is who he is off the field or accused of being off the field. But undoubtedly, there people will be able to look past if he was playing well, and the Browns were having success. But he's not, and it's not even close. It is genuinely awful in every sense of the word. And then the few times where he's not awful, his teammates aren't doing what they need to be doing. So
exactly,
there are a number of problems here, but it's impossible for me to disagree with Chris Sims of where it begins.
Yep. Okay, so we're going full circle here tonight. I don't want to torture anybody else with more, why isn't Watson sitting videos? They're endless out there. But we will kind of turn back into the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show here with, an interesting couple takes on the whole Nick Chubb thing here. The Nick Chubb letter. I told you we would be back to this. So here we are. And let's see if I can get this timestamp right here. So slow. But I want to get to 3:53. And we'll throw it up there. Thank you for your patience.
I mean, none of us know him personally. At least I can only speak for myself. We don't know him. We think we know him. But based on
that's fair.
Based on all the knowledge we
know of him,
everything we know about Nick Chubb, everything we've heard about Nick Chubb, is that he represents the type of player that when we're kids and we root for athletes, that's the type of guy you want to root for. Mm-hmm. You want to think that the players love it as much as you do, that it's meaningful, that they're always working hard. And when you're a kid, you don't think about the guys that are getting in trouble off the field or maybe not playing to the best of their ability. Nick Chubb represents the best of what we hope for in our athletes. And he's a great player. He appears by all accounts to be a great person. There's no showboating. It's all about the work for Nick Chubb, and that's why, in a city like Cleveland, which is, sometimes it gets overblown about blue collar because there's plenty of blue collar people in every city, but it is true. Cleveland is blue collar.
I mean,
and so he fits the mold, especially here. He was always going to resonate even more in a Midwestern city, and so it was the perfect fit of player in town, and that's why everybody loves him so much.
So I'm not going to spin this negatively.
But
I got some takes. I mean, I think that the Cleveland Browns don't deserve Nick Chubb.
Seems negative.
No, listen.
Seems negative to me. I'm just going to say that seems negative. Very negative right off the rip. Maybe he'll rally.
I'm not going to spin this negatively. Here's the most negative thing I can say. Yeah, that's really negative. What do you think of that take? That's a harsh one, Pete.
It means not. It just doesn't mean anything to me. Like, again, if you want to say that the Browns should basically be wiped off the face of the earth over Deshaun Watson, okay, but like, and that's fine. There are certain universities I feel the same way with in terms of sports,
Sure.
but. And not Michigan. I'm talking about actual like things that happen to these schools. They're really disgusting. But what else is? Why are we saying this? Because one, invariably, fans are going to take this to heart.
Yep.
And two, you're basically saying that don't watch the Browns. Like, you're basically saying the Browns should no longer matter.
They don't deserve anything good.
I find that very sort of confusing for you to say, as somebody who's saying, please watch me on TV or the internet, whatever, and say, listen to me talk about football, because that's literally the most popular sport, not just, certainly in America and all that, but specifically the state of Ohio and Northeast Ohio, with a region where football Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday is ingrained into you to be like, well, the team didn't deserve this guy.
Yeah.
Well, clearly the player thinks differently. Let's start there. Nick Chubb seems to think differently about the situation, and I think Nick Chubb should get to decide on this one. That's me. I think Nick Chubb should get to decide. So, and then I pointed this right off the rip, like the Nick Chubb element is like the best of the Browns. And them doing right by Nick Chubb, no hesitation. According to Nick Chubb, has been there with him the whole way. And obviously, Deshaun Watson is the opposite end of the spectrum. But like, you would hope, like, unless they're going to cease operations, which I don't think will happen, you have to hope they're going to get past the Deshaun Watson thing and continue to do things that are, ultimately better. I guess my question is, like, if the Browns don't deserve Nick Chubb or whatever, or whoever else you want to throw into that mix, what has to happen? What has to happen for them to be allowed to have to deserve these type of players? Because here's the thing.
What's the qualifier?
There are 32 teams that do a whole lot of nasty stuff to players in terms of how they're treated, medical stuff, doctors, just ripping up contracts at a whim, all these things. So I understand why he's saying this in terms of the context of Deshaun Watson, everything you hate about him. And I totally understand that. But I think this is a misfire on his part.
Yeah, agreed. And it sounds like it's coming off on to the fans. And it's like, what do you mean? What did the fans do? The fans deserve the best there is. That's what we're achieving. That's what we're trying for. The fans didn't do anything wrong here, right? So that's where it feels like a misfire. But and he may correct that in a minute, I think. But I don't. Either way, I mean, if you want to do and this isn't excusing anything the Browns have done as an organization, but if you want to do like a background check or like, even what people don't know or isn't on the record about all of the humans in the NFL, you're not going to find, you're going to find some bad stuff and some bad dudes out there on every roster.
Dustin Fox is another guy who wanted Josh McDaniels, who players hate.
Yeah.
They hated him hated him with the Raiders. Like they hated him with the Patriots by and large.
Yeah.
Like Josh McDaniels has been a hateable head coach. So what does that mean? Like, do the Browns was his argument that the Browns should hire Josh McDaniels because they deserve to have this horribly dislikable person as their head coach? Like, it's just very confusing to me on a weird number of things. I suspect, and maybe he's going to take it back here in the segment. I suspect he wishes he did not say that.
Agreed. And a weird timing too, after you just got done talking about the letter that Chubb wrote about that was so meaningful to so many people.
Yes. Invalidates it immediately. Like the letter is meaningless at this point. Like that's, I think they are, and I don't think they mean to do this at all, but I think they're, sort of, stomping all over Nick Chubb here. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it's intentional by any stretch. I just think the conversation where it is and where it's going to go, do it for them. And I think Bull was right. Bull was doing it the right way, but I think this is where you I don't think you help yourself.
I think if you pay attention closely, you get a classic Jay pipe in from the background. Yep, that's what I thought too. I think you get one of those right here. So hold on to your seats.
As I was reading the piece, I asked myself, how did we get so lucky to get him?
That's right.
And there's a lot of truth in what you just said.
They don't deserve a player like him who totally cares probably more than many people even in that building about winning and showing up and grinding, grit, hard work, all of the things that you have to do to be a successful football player. Nick Chubb does that.
Yeah.
And this guy has been through adversity, and yet he shows up, doesn't say a gosh darn word about anything, doesn't bitch, doesn't complain, hands the ball to the official, scores touchdowns, runs hard, blocks, pass protection, you name it. The guy would sell popcorn at halftime if he could. The guy does absolutely everything. And the line in that last paragraph that really strikes me, and it actually kind of irks me, is that the Browns had the audacity to go to him and say, we're not going to cut you. Are you effing kidding me? Not going to cut you? This is the best running back in football and means so much to this organization. If you cut him, he'd be picked up in 20 seconds. Maybe
by the
2 seconds. By anybody.
Right.
This is one of the best backs we've seen in the last decade.
Oh, without a doubt.
Clearly. And I just, like, when I say the Browns don't, the fans deserve him.
Yeah.
We deserve him in the media. I mean, like, the guy is somebody that's so fun to cover.
Yeah.
But, like, for the organization to act like they're doing him a solid, F off.
It's a good point. I didn't really
pause this.
He just wrote a letter saying that they were doing him a solid.
No, like that's the point. The Browns didn't say they were doing him a solid. Nick Chubb did. Nick Chubb's the one saying the Browns support him. It's not like the Browns wrote a letter and said, "Hey, Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb's coming back, and you should be grateful because we did him a solid." Nick Chubb is saying to Cleveland fans and anyone else, I feel good that the Browns did this immediately. Now, to push back on this other point, if Nick Chubb was cut, he'd be signed basically today. He would not have been signed in the offseason because they couldn't, and no one was going to do it when he was coming back from the injury. And the idea that he was going to get paid as well as he will be currently by the Browns is also not true. He would have been paid practically nothing other than incentives, which maybe he would earn, but ultimately he was going to get a very low contract. And that was part of the reason when they restructured him, he was happy to do it because he knew, and he says it in the letter, they had all the leverage. So this is where it feels like Dustin is mad at somebody else. I don't know who is he to say that Nick Chubb can't be grateful to the Browns? He's the one writing this. It's his voice. Like, why are you trying to take that away from him? Now you can say the Browns don't deserve any credit for doing him a solid because of all the things you said. Fine. But Nick Chubb is the one saying it, and he gets to say it because it's him. It's his experience. It's his life.
Yep.
He is saying, I'm grateful. I love the fact that I'm still with the Browns. I love the fact that that I'm coming out. I'm doing this for the fans. And again, I don't know that he realizes what he's doing, but he's basically robbing Nick Chubb of this moment and what he's trying to get across to fans who love him and want to see him play again. It feels so misdirected and very confusing. And even there, he sort of pulls back and say the fans deserve him. Well, do they? What? Why? You're just very frustrating to sit here and be as if the Browns are touting this success. They are not. They never did.
They're not.
Other than in press conferences when people were speculating and asking, and then Andrew Berry consistently said, we
love him
here. We don't want his last carry with to be the one against the Steelers. I don't know who on the Browns is asking Dustin Fox to give them credit for it. They're not. It's Nick Chubb who's saying this, and you're reacting to what he said.
Yeah, that's and Pat Shea pointing out here too, and it's actually what I wrote down to what you said. I think they're wrong in saying somebody would have signed him right away. You said it. No. They would have signed him today when he was ready to come back, and it would have been on a prove it deal, basically nothing. But the biggest thing about signing him and keeping him on there is the rehab. If the Browns would have cut him, he would have been forced to rehab on his own. On his own dime, on his own doctors. But either way, he has access to the building. He's part of the team. All of that goes through there. And the biggest point is it's his letter. The way that Dustin is coming across, he literally says,
did Andrew Berry write the letter? And I'm just mistaken on this. Is it literally the bottom does it say sincerely Andrew Berry?
Yeah, like he said, for the Browns to act like they're doing him a favor is laughable. Well, the Browns aren't acting like they're doing him a favor. Nick Chubb is writing that he sincerely thanks them. So what are you talking about right now?
And part of the reason this is interesting is consider the dynamic that we were talking about in the year when Nick Chubb got hurt. The running backs as a collective had a conference call. They were talking about trying to maximize their own value. That one big injury could ruin your career, that money's just not there like it used to be for this position. And then Nick Chubb goes and gets hurt in the most awful way possible. And operating from that mindset of thinking, oh my God, my career's over. The team, my career's over, period. That was his first thought. And then now, oh my God, what happens? Is the team going to get rid of me? Because he understands the market. He understands how other running backs have been treated by apparently all the 31 other saintly teams operating out there that deserve him much more than the Browns. That is where he's fundamentally missing. That is why Nick Chubb is expressing this opinion, because he sees it, because he's hearing from these other running backs who have been just thrown away. Like Todd Gurley, for example, is a great name to throw out there in terms of a guy who is absolutely just disposed of from the league. By the Rams, and then had a couple short stints with other teams. Like Nick Chubb understands how hard this business is, and Dustin Fox should, because he was in it. Like, and all credit to him for getting to that point. But like, that's where he's got to have to understand like the place that Nick Chubb is speaking from. A guy at a position that the league is saying is not as valuable. A guy who's saying, I could have easily been just thrown away, because that's what happens to NFL players when they are no longer useful to teams. Let him have it. It's his to have. Yeah, St. Louis, but 31 other teams, they're apparently way more deserving. Or maybe there's only like 3 teams that deserve. I don't know. He did not specify. All I know is the Browns do not.
Yeah. Karma, right?
Think about it that way.
I did.
I'm actually not.
I did.
I'm actually surprised because like the Browns always come off as tone deaf. I mean, all the time.
What's the right move? They usually go 180 degrees in the other direction.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they weren't like, well, it's just a computer program doesn't say that we should keep him and blah, blah, blah. Somebody asked me yesterday, should the Browns trade Nick Chubb? And I'm like, no.
Well, there's no value there. Not now.
Yeah, but...
And he's signed through the year.
I just don't want to trade him.
No. We need something to cheer for.
If Nick Chubb wanted to be gone...
So there was more value after he got hurt than there is now, Pete?
Well, again, here's the thing. Like,
just said there's no value there.
They are contradicting themselves in the same breath. And there's 3 of them talking, so you sort of lose track of who's trying to make what point in terms of this. But yes, I mean, this is the part where you're like, you can make the argument that like the Browns are tone deaf in certain ways. They've also gotten some of these things very right in terms of how they've treated players. In terms of, again, talking about the Browns prioritizing success beyond football. You know, like DeQuell Jackson being a quiet assistant coach on the Browns for a while, or a scout or whatever he's doing now. No, I know he's done both. He's done a little bit of both, but you get my point. Like, the Browns have been doing these things to try to help their players. Apparently it was tone deaf for the Browns to stay with Josh Gordon through it all. Even when Josh Gordon was off the team, they stayed with him through it all. So I understand what they're trying to say in terms of tone deaf. Deshaun Watson is tone deaf. Some of the things they've done, arguably tone deaf. You can make the case that Joe Hayden was tone deaf. Obviously, I'm sure they're going to say Jarvis Landry was tone deaf, even though it was exactly what should happen. And yes, they helped OBJ, which, by the way, is really interesting. Josina Anderson has been tweeting about this, who's obviously very close to OBJ, and always makes it a point to say that Andrew Berry and the Browns did right by Odell Beckham when they didn't have to. And this has been the case in a number of cases. In her case, this was not about Nick Chubb. This was actually about Amari Cooper, talking about how the Browns have done some of these guys, I don't know if even a favor, but done right by the player in terms of they could have theoretically traded Amari Cooper to Siberia. You know what I mean? They could have traded him to the Raiders. They could have traded him to any number of other teams. They were not afraid to send him to the right place. They were not afraid to facilitate OBJ getting to go play and get a Super Bowl ring with the Rams. Like, so yeah, I understand why they would say tone deaf. I just don't think it hits the mark. And I would also say that fans probably agree with what he's saying by saying they're largely tone deaf. I don't agree with it, but I disagree with the notion that the Browns should just keep anyone around for fan interest. Yeah. Because we get a running back with 3 arms on the field and somebody will watch. That doesn't help them. Now, I've said before on the show, I do think the Browns are going to extend Nick Chubb. I think they're going to keep him around.
Me too.
But here's the other thing. Like, the thing with the Browns and Nick Chubb, the Browns were the only team who was going to pay Nick Chubb for past success. Everybody else was going to pay him for what he was going to offer them now. Like, to the point of what would have happened if the Browns cut him. You know what would have happened? Maybe this week, maybe next week, Nick Chubb would have had a big tryout with a whole bunch of teams there, and it would have been an event covered, whatever. And then somebody would have signed him for, I don't think it would be a bidding war, but somebody would give him what amounts to a contract with incentives. The Browns were the only team willing to pay him X dollars to rehab and do all these other things, which is why I think that's also meaningful to Nick Chubb, that he's still getting paid. I cannot express to you how important it is for a guy who's sitting there going, I feel like my earning power is over. I talked about this with Amari Cooper and why I felt he was pressing. And you can talk about all the money Amari Cooper's made. it hits different when you're suddenly going, I'm at the peak of my earning power. I'm at the peak of my earning power. And all of a sudden, your professional sports life is flashing in front of your eyes. And you're going, oh my God, this might be over. And what you're willing to do in that circumstance to try to get better in terms of pressing, to try to make plays as much as you can, because you don't want to lose that. Or, and not to say Amari Cooper's in this camp, what do a lot of other players do? They turn to things like PEDs, and they do things to do anything they can to stay in this. So I understand. I expect Nick Chubb is sort of expressing what had to be at points a feeling of panic, that the Browns were willing to say, don't worry about it. We're going to take you. Had to be a huge load off for him. Had to be a huge load off for his family. It's really difficult for me not for people to say they don't understand how you could possibly feel that way, especially in this case, an ex-professional athlete like Dustin Fox. That's frustrating. But again, I disagree. I understand why they're saying it. I understand why a large number of people may think that the Browns are tone deaf. You know who's tone deaf? Bill Belichick's Patriots. They were tone deaf. They didn't care. Yeah. And you know what? They were successful because they were tone deaf in some ways. So, like, it's very hard for me to, like, do we want the sentimental team or do we want the ruthlessly efficient team? And the Browns are, in this case, trying to do a little bit of both. And to their credit, I think they may have handled it the best way possible. And who knows? We don't know what Nick Chubb's going to look like on Sunday. If he's like suddenly just a completely non-Nick Chubb player, you know what? People are going to immediately start saying, the Browns should cut him. The Browns shouldn't bring him back just to be a guy on the sideline. Don't be, Johnny Unitas on the West Coast. Don't be Joe Namath in a Chargers uniform, those type of things. Yeah, I mean, that's my point too. I agree with this sentiment that he's worth far more to the Browns, and that's why you're willing to pay it. Now, I wish it could do enough damage control. I think it takes a smidgen away. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you that there is some element of Nick Chubb can sort of help people look past at least a little bit the Deshaun Watson thing, but like nowhere near enough. But yes, I agree that is part of the thought process here. And the same reason why they will give Myles Garrett everything he wants to stay here if that's what he wants to do. Yeah. Joel Bitonio is going to be able to retire with the team. All these other things that they're with how they're going to approach this thing, and none of it's going to be able to eclipse the amount of damage Deshaun Watson has done. But you at some point think that the page will turn, and they've got to make it quicker by being successful and being good past this season, and then two, the other part of that is they're going to have to own it in some form or fashion. Now, people want them fired. I get it, but they're going to have to own this somehow to try to sort of, I don't even know if it's ask forgiveness, but just sort of like, look, man, we did this thing. It clearly did not work. We embarrassed the fan base. They didn't deserve this, that, and the other. Just something to be able to try to make that transition.
Yeah, we're prepared to move forward in a competitive nature, blah, 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 right? All right, let's continue for a couple more minutes here.
I guess, if I'm the Browns, I would certainly consider it, but if he wants to stay, I'd re-sign him.
I would too.
I mean,
if you don't re-sign him, he's going to sign somewhere else
and be good.
And he's going to make your life miserable.
He's going to have another 3-4 years of excellent football.
I agree with you, Bull.
I agree.
Maybe more.
Yeah, because he's
29.
Right.
You guys don't understand.
Yeah.
Guys like him don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Yes, he's had injuries. Okay, we get that. But he's special. Okay, I think he could play. I mean, you said 4 or 5 years are good years.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But the dude could play like Frank Gore. I think
or Peterson who played deep.
Well, and you say that because of how he's physically put together and how he takes
Gore
care
had
of
knee
himself.
issues. I mean, and he still played till he was damn near 40.
And he's way better than Gore in his prime. I mean,
in his prime, yes.
Yeah. So and look at the way Nick Chubb is built. I mean, his upper body is absurd.
We haven't seen him play a game since the injury yet, Pete.
Well, listen, we don't need to. He's playing till he's 33 at a super high level. This is the thing. And look, I would love that to be true for Nick Chubb.
Me too.
But when you read the article,
Yeah.
You heard what he was worried about when he got hurt.
Yes.
That, like, nuts and bolts were going to be, that like all over his leg because there were metal pieces in his body. Like, I don't know how long you can go on like that. I hope to hell that Nick Chubb can come back and be Nick Chubb and have another great season or few.
Yeah.
I do not know how you jump to 33 years old. And I understand the Frank Gore thing, but Frank Gore did not look like Frank Gore at those late years. He was an okay running back. You're asking Nick Chubb, based on not seeing him play, to be spectacular. And I don't know that that's realistic for him. We got to see what he can do. He's got to see what he can do, because I don't know if Nick Chubb knows yet.
No.
And that's not, that's a difficult thing to do, because if he's not, Nick's obviously going to be disappointed, but fans are going to be immediately frustrated that he's not the same old Nick Chubb. And so are these people. But if Dustin wants to be consistent, shouldn't he be saying to Nick, look, play out the rest of this year and get out. Go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Go be great somewhere else, because the Cleveland Browns don't deserve you. And that's, again, why I find that line of reasoning frustrating here. But yeah, let's see what happens. I would love for him to be great. I don't know what's going to happen. If he's 80% of Nick Chubb, that's a good running back.
Great. Yeah.
But is he, even if that's where he's at, how many years can he do that? I don't know. I don't know what his doctors have told him. The fact that he's back at all in any capacity is borderline miraculous to have the same injury basically twice.
It is.
So let's not put the cart in front of the horse.
Which was kind of the point of the letter in general. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we're really kind of going overboard here.
For a running back, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And when he comes back this year, he might be not quite the guy he was, obviously, because he's just coming back from injury. But I would bet by next year, the latest, he's a top 5 running back in the league again.
I think he will too.
And the other thing too is, like,
you're right.
It's like
everybody thought Derrick Henry was done 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Look what he's doing in Baltimore. Look what he's doing in Baltimore this year.
Nick Chubb is such a sweet guy. Like, it's almost like he's naive to how good he is. Like,
in some level,
is in some ways run scared every day, and I love that attitude about him, because players who want to become great, you don't rest on your laurels, and you continue to strive and get better and get better, and you think that you never feel like you've arrived.
Yeah.
And the problem with the Browns for so many years is so many dudes thought that they were like these stars, and they've arrived and they're better. Dude, you guys stink.
Yeah.
Okay? Nick Chubb does not stink. Nick Chubb brings out the best in the coaches and the players.
Yeah.
And for anybody to look like we considered cutting? No.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb is what we need. We need 22 of those dudes.
Give us 53 and you win a Super Bowl every year.
Nobody said they considered cutting him.
Yes, Nick Chubb is quite clearly saying that the Browns never considered cutting him. So you're making this an issue into something that Nick Chubb said was never a consideration.
It's wild, man. Wild
I don't
stuff.
know who he's mad at, but he's clearly mad at somebody.
Yeah. And then we wanted to finish up tonight, Pete, with this, just to get your thoughts on this, this last one here. Because I don't know if it goes this far. You know what I mean? Same show. This one is a J take only. Let's see if but he takes it to a maximum here on like the Browns' reputation, and I don't know, what your thoughts are on this. So
all I can say right now is it continues to be based Bull. He's consistently the most reasonable person on that show to me.
Right.
I think Bull's doing a great job.
All right, here we go with some more. This was a different segment there, but they come back to the same sort of.
This morning, and his coach, who he calls in the letter crazy, said, if this team calls, don't pick up the phone. And he pointed to the Browns logo. And he said they reconvened at the Buffalo Wild Wings. And as soon as day 2 was starting, his phone rang. And it said, Cleveland, Ohio, 216. And he almost, he was freaking out. He didn't know what to do. That was the team that
not
was
what the letter
circled. You
said.
do not.
That was totally fabricated. That's not in the letter. It never says he was free, right? I don't
No,
think.
this was coming from his coach or whatever,
Yeah.
not him.
Yeah, not Nick. So don't know where that came from, but his coach did say that to him. So, but here's the point. So this is what I wanted to ask you about. So here, let's let Jay with the
Want to go there.
Yeah.
We'd like to think that that has changed because of the 2 playoff appearances in the last 4 years. It hasn't. If teams and if superstars are asking themselves before the draft, where don't I want to go? Who were they circling?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the Browns are
Circling
right
the Cleveland Browns.
near the top of the list.
And
That's completely
top
made
of
up
the
and
list.
frankly stupid at this point. There are a whole lot of people that really love the idea of coming to Cleveland. Now, this year does not help, but
No.
there were a whole lot of people that are excited about coming to the Browns because of the things they were doing and the way they take care of players. I mean, you listen to like Jack Duffin talk to who's the former Giants lineman he's always talking to now. God, what's his name? Played for the Cardinals too. Anyway, he's talking about, man, the Browns are this great situation because they lead the league in $10 million players. They're doing all these things to make sure they can pay more of their players, this, that, and the other, in addition to the things they have done. It is unrecognizable how much different the Browns organization has been since Barry and Stefanski were hired. And I've talked about this in terms of getting people in the building who are first and foremost player liaisons, guys who are talking to players, helping them out as much as possible in terms of like their mental health, trying to like put them in the best position to succeed, financial help, trying to make sure that they keep the wealth that they create, trying to make sure that they're successful after football. I like a couple of years ago, I talked to a woman who was literally has been a person who's been brought in to do this stuff and how engaged the Browns are to these realities and all these other things. So I don't doubt that Jay can come up with an example that said, I don't want to go to Cleveland. And some of that may have everything to do with the fact it's Cleveland. And there are people who still don't like Cleveland no matter what. Then they end up here and then they go, I was wrong about this. Or some of them still may not like Cleveland, but there are a lot of people who have changed their mind. And then ultimately to say, not only do I really like Cleveland, I'm going to live here after I'm done with football or whatever. But like we saw players who were excited to not only come to Cleveland the past couple of off seasons,
but come back,
but wanted to stay. Like we're adamant that they wanted to stay. We're disappointed that the Browns couldn't make it work for them to stay. So like I said, if we get to draft time and, a certain quarterback from a college in the mountain time zone has a father who's saying he doesn't want his kid to play in Cleveland, that could happen. I could totally see where that happens. One, he doesn't like cold weather. Two, the other element of this is that the Browns have shed a lot of that. And most of these players don't care about Deshaun Watson. As much as people want them to care about Deshaun Watson, they don't. They care about the fact that Deshaun Watson stinks. They absolutely care about that part. But
yeah,
I think people get really frustrated by the element that people are not as angry about. Like when the Browns initially acquired Watson, there were people who were like mad that the Browns players were not basically saying, hey, get me out of here. I don't want to play with this guy. When that's not how it works, because you don't have that much control. Careers are finite and everything else. So you can find an example, maybe more than one example of guys who don't want to play in Cleveland, don't want to play in a whole lot of places. But particularly as we see like the report cards and stuff come out from the NFLPA, there's a lot of opinions changing on where players do and do not want to play. So he can say that, and there will be people who believe him, and so be it. But ultimately, that is a very old stereotype, and this is something Jay likes to revisit because he hates everything to do with the Browns and Jimmy Haslam and piles on every time he can. So he'll just say stuff, and that's fine. But I just don't. It does not ring true to me, especially given what I know about certain players who have been drafted by this team who are like rooting for that outcome. We're thrilled to get that phone call. We're ecstatic about not only just their NFL career, but specifically playing for the Browns. And I think we are allowing the 1-5 in the current situation to just completely erase that element.
Agreed. You're letting the minority keep a old stigma alive. Certainly, to your point, this year doesn't help. But
for someone who seems to want it to be true.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Well said. Yes. What was I going to say? Oh, Chef, I wasn't disputing that was not in the article. I was talking about his comment after the fact that he said that was in the article about freaking out. Anyways, great job tonight, Pete, as always. Thank you guys all for joining us for the react, all 2 hours of it. Good stuff tonight as the Browns get ready for the Bengals this weekend. A much better team than, well, at least offensively, than the record shows. You know what the line is, Pete? It was like 4 or 5.
I do not. I think
it was 4 or 5.
The Bengals played better against the Giants, but they've been bad. I mean, they've been really good on offense for some of these games, but their defense has been really bad.
Has been really bad.
So we'll see if the Browns can have a pulse. And if they've had an unfathomable amount of success against the Bengals offense with their defense. If that helps them in terms of confidence, if that just feels like, okay, this is the matchup we really like. This is, this sort of feels, in addition to the Nick Chubb element, all these other things, that maybe that's going to help. Well, there you go. Browns 5.5.
Yeah, they're getting 5.5. I wonder how much, I know it moved. I wonder how much it moved after Cooper got traded.
Good question. It probably had at least half a point impact, I would think.
Yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, it's let's see if the Browns can summit Mount 20 this week.
That would be fantastic. I almost guarantee the Bengals are just going to score 20 points, Pete. So
yeah, and that's ultimately where you basically right now, until they prove otherwise, any matchup with the Browns, you're basically looking, do I feel like the other team's going to score 20?
Yeah.
Then I'm picking them.
I think Jameis could get him over 20. I'm going to just go on the record and say I think Jameis gives him a better chance to go over 20. So
it's a hell of a streak to be on, to not be able to score 20 points when you had 2 games where Rodney McLeod scored a touchdown.
Agreed. Before we get out of here, do you have any parting words you'd like to leave us with tonight, Pete? I'm going to throw up a slide of the rest of the week's schedule here, and every week's schedule. But
plenty to tune into, and if you can't catch it live, obviously you can watch it on YouTube. You can all these shows end up on the OBR podcasting network thing, all in one place. You can obviously, the stuff we have on the site, there's plenty of coverage. Like Sam Penix did a film thing on Jack Conklin. Another one on Deshaun Watson, as he likes to do. And then, you got Brad with his things he thinks he knows, and all the other stuff coming. But also, I highly recommend signing up for the newsletter. It gives you all the stuff in one place, right in your email box. You don't have to think about it, and then you may forget about it. Something may turn up that you're interested in, and jump on it.
The link for that newsletter that Pete was just talking about is in the description below, as is the link to the website itself. So go to theobr.com, read everything that Pete writes. It's always fantastic. And everybody else at the site. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Hit like and subscribe on your way out. Tell a friend. Keep coming back. We appreciate you all for watching. And I'll see you tomorrow night on All Eyes on Cleveland. But keep coming back. Go Browns. Hang in there. And for Pete Smith, my name is Brad Ward. We are out.